Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey guys, it's Emily, the controversial mom, and I have a very controversial topic for us today, the DOGE. Who knew that Elon Musk could create an organization called the DOGE that would cause controversy on both sides of the aisle? But yet somehow he did it. I actually believe that Elon Musk and the DOGE may be the most controversial thing that Trump does this year. And that's saying a lot because I think Trump has a whole lot in store for our country right now. But certainly for the moment, Elon Musk and the DOGE is the most controversial topic going around. I have found it absolutely entertaining to see Elon Musk tick off both sides of the aisle. I didn't know that it was humanly possible to accomplish that, but Elon seems to do that on a regular basis these days. It seems like every time you turn on the news, you're learning more about wasteful spending within our government that ticks off the right because we become aware of how much fraud, waste, and abuse and just stupid spending our government has been doing for the past several, well, probably decades. And then Elon Musk and Trump take action and they cancel contracts and they cancel organizations and they close off entities. And then the left gets mad at them. So it doesn't matter where you are in the process. I guarantee you, you've been ticked off by something Elon Musk has either said, done, or uncovered recently. I know I certainly have. I think a lot about how difficult it was during the Biden years dealing with Bidenomics and the effects of inflation on my family. I'm a single income home, so this stuff hits me really hard, really quick. And I vividly remember dealing with my son over the past 4 years as the price of everything went up, whether it's gas, groceries, utilities, whatever it was, everywhere we turned, prices were going up. So when my son would ask for something that he typically asked for, and I would have to tell him no, it was always because inflation, prices are going up, whatever. And he had to start learning that at a very young age because obviously I'm explaining it to him, but he was experiencing the impacts of it because he wanted to live the normal life we had lived under Trump term one, and we couldn't. So it was really frustrating to me having to go through all those things with my son and constantly telling him no, to then find out that my taxpayer dollars were going to condoms in Ghana or Sesame Street in Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever stupid country it was. So while I was cutting back to make sure we had money in savings, that we were getting by, my taxpayer dollars were going to stupid things within the USAID. I was super irritated when I learned those things, but I was also very relieved when they shut down the USAID, and I hope they leave it shut down forever. I also learned that the USAID was not established via an act of Congress. It was actually signed or created after an executive order by President Kennedy. So for all the people saying that Trump can't just shut down USAID via executive order, I think he can because that's how it was created. But I digress. So DOGE is quite the controversial topic. It is all over Twitter, X, whatever, and I love it. But then this week, things got even better because they officially started the DOGE subcommittee meetings. It is chaired by one of my favorite people, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Georgia. She is one of my favorite people for multiple reasons. One, she's a CrossFitter like I am. Two, she is short like me. And I love that. The woman is insanely strong. I'm pretty sure she can out-squat almost any man in Congress, which is extremely impressive. But on top of all of that, she is a fierce fighter for the conservative movement. She is very outspoken. She is very unapologetic. And my most favorite, she is very controversial. She is absolutely one of my favorites. And I got to meet her this past fall at an event, and I am so glad that I had that opportunity. But she is chairing the DOGE subcommittee. And in what she's doing in the immediate or the first meeting they had this week, they started focusing on fraudulent payments. And I'm going to reference my notes because, I have to do that. It's improper payments and fraud. That's where they're starting. So she named her first meeting of the DOGE subcommittee the War on Waste, stamping out the scourge of improper payments and fraud. I thought that was awesome. I love the name of it. But they started with improper payments and fraud because it's kind of an easy place to start. Obviously, there's lots of payments in the federal government, so they wanted to start there and try to clean that up. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. But in one of the reports, she had provided some statistics that I found fascinating and also very discouraging. In fraud rates within the private sector equates for roughly 3%. So it's not very high. But in the federal government, it's 20%. 20% fraud rates in the federal government dealing with our taxpayer dollars. It is infuriating. Since 2003, the government has lost $2.7 trillion because of improper payments. That is insane. So because of that, that's kind of why the DOGE subcommittee started there. So those are big numbers, but they're nothing in comparison to what Musk's really goal is for the DOGE. I mean, obviously he's cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, getting rid of unnecessary spending and all of that. But his goal for fiscal year 26 is to shave off $1 trillion in government deficit. That is astronomical. Like, my brain cannot even comprehend what $1 trillion is. $1 million is life-changing for most of us. $1 trillion is just incomprehensible. But his goal is to shave off $1 trillion in government deficit in FY26. To get there, he will have to reduce government spending on average by $4 billion per day. $4 billion with a B dollars per day to get to this goal. It seems like he's probably close, right? Because we keep hearing all these things that he's cutting. He cut USAID. He's been at the Department of Education cutting almost 100 contracts over there. 30 of them are DEI. If we ever question whether our schools are indoctrinating kids, the answer is yes. He is cutting stuff left, right, and sideways. So it seems like he's probably getting close to this $4 billion per day. No, he's not even close. Right now, he's at about $1 billion per day that he's cutting in terms of spending. So with all the things we're seeing him do, just know on average, he's cutting $1 billion of your taxpayer dollars on a daily basis. He has to get to 4 to get to the goal of reducing government deficit by $1 trillion in FY26. Astronomical numbers that truly my brain just cannot comprehend. But it's fascinating to watch, and I love it. But then the question comes to, what are we doing at the state level? And this is not a question that I'm just out in left field asking. Lots of people are asking it. Lots of organizations are talking about it. Lots of organizations are creating their own little local DOGE and all of that, which is great and wonderful. Everybody needs to be looking into this stuff and figuring out what in the crap our state is doing with our taxpayer dollars, because I promise you, it's not all good, and I can prove that. The problem is these organizations don't really have authority to do anything. So they can go find all these contracts, all this fraud, waste, and abuse. They don't have the legal authority to do anything with it, right? They can't cancel contracts. They can't fire people. They can't do anything with it. Now, we can gather information. We can make a big stink out of it, and we can try to force our governor to do something. But short of getting the governor on board, we're just doing a lot of research. Still good, still support it, still want to do it. Just saying, it's not the same as having an Alabama version of DOGE, because you don't have the legal authority to get things done. But still support it. So now the question is, what is Alabama doing with our money, and how are we tracking it? So y'all know me, I love to research. I ask lots and lots and lots of questions. And through that, I've kind of found some very disturbing things. Not because I was looking into it for like the DOGE purpose, but for something completely unrelated. So about 3 months ago, I started asking the question to our Department of Education of, how much money have we received as a state in federal funds, specifically to the Department of Education, not the whole state, just one agency in the state. How much have you all received in federal funding year over year for the past 5 years? Now, I work for the Department of Defense, and I work in finance and budgets. So I know that this stuff, at least within the DOD, is pretty easily accessible. Now, the level of detail may be a little squirrely. You may not find a good audit trail, because the DOD is a complete mess on that one. But in terms of budgets and how much money each program's gotten, the DOD's got that. Like, you can find that. You got to go to the right person, but you can get that. So to me, asking our state Department of Education this question seemed like a no-brainer. I thought this will take a week. That shouldn't be hard to pull that report. But what I learned was quite disturbing on multiple levels. As a citizen of our state, as a parent with a child in public school, and just a taxpayer in our country, the answers were very disturbing. It took me a while, but I finally ended up having a conversation with some folks with general counsel for the Department of Education. And again, explain what I'm looking for. Federal dollars into the Department of Education year over year, high level, program wise. What is that money going to? I didn't want like the breakout of what you're sending to each individual school system. Just what are you getting with Title I money? What are you getting for Title IX money? What are you getting through ESSA? I've learned a lot of this through all my research because that was really my point in all of it. But that was the question. That was it. Nothing hard. And the guy told me on the phone, well, we can't give you that because we don't have it. And to pull the information you're asking for, it would take us years to get to. And without thinking, I said, well, that's extremely disturbing to hear. And he seemed really offended by my statement. And he questioned, well, why is that disturbing? And I said, well, you're telling me you have no idea what money's coming into our school systems. And if you don't know what money's coming in and what the requirements are, then how do you know that we're following the regulations? How do you know that you're not indoctrinating our kids? Because under Biden, a lot of that money had stipulations that you push gender ideology. So if you don't know where the money's coming from, how do you know that schools aren't pushing this? And of course, he has no answer to that because no one wants to answer that question of, well, we don't know. We're just taking money because it's free money, essentially is what's happening. But from a country standpoint, this is really concerning. So the federal government appears, from everything I can tell, just pushes out money to the states, to the departments of education, and they just take the money. And no one asks what it's for. There's no reporting. There's no making sure that you're doing what the federal government says, which is going to be quite concerning now that Trump's prohibited all this crap in our schools. If you weren't following regulations before, how do we know you're following them now when you can't push this stuff? The answer is they don't care, and I can prove that too. But that's for another day. Back to the DOGE. Our state Department of Education gets money. They have no idea what it's for. They just get it. They receive it. They don't put it in a like an accounting record of any kind that says this is Title I money, this is Title IX money. Based on what they told me, nope, they just take money and then they distribute it out. Now, I think part of that is untrue. I think they do have some of these records. I think they do track it more than they're telling me, but they're not revealing that. But that's okay. The other piece to this in my research was looking into Title IX. So as you all know, Trump signed a new executive order that keeps men out of women's sports. So in my research, I started looking at Title IX policies across the state at each individual school. That's a lot of work, by the way. There's 67 counties. There's at least 55 that have issues, 55 counties that have at least one school that does not comply with the new Title IX policy. But again, I digress. As I'm looking at those policies, I start noticing this recurrence of Federal Programs Coordinator, Title IX Coordinator. Every single school has at least one of those. A lot of them have both. Now, this is funded through, my assumption is it's funded through the federal government. It's not state dollars. But still, the question has to be raised of why do you have to have two of these people? That's two salaries. That's two people's benefits. That's two people's retirement. For what? It doesn't require two people to manage this stuff. You might need one. I think that's questionable, but you might need one. You certainly don't need two. I promise you, there's not that many Title IX complaints floating around in every single school to justify having a full-time employee managing that. It is the biggest waste. There is so much administrative bloat in the Department of Education, and this is a prime example. Two people on payroll to manage federal programs or a specific one for the Title IX coordinator. This is unreal. We don't need all this. This is exactly why we need a state level DOGE to dig into this stuff and figure out exactly what are these people doing? Are two people required? The answer is no. How do we get rid of them? That's what we've got to figure out. So we've got to have a state level DOGE, but it's got to be something that actually has authority to take action, to cancel contracts, reduce overhead, whatever it may be. We've got to have that. And I don't have the answer on how we make that happen. I'm just here to tell you what needs to happen. I don't know if it's we need to put pressure on our legislators to tell them to establish it, if it's pushing our governor to establish the DOGE. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we have massive fraud, waste, and abuse at the federal level. We also have it at the state level. And aside from just waste at the state level, there's also the concern as DOGE and Elon Musk start really looking into the Department of Education and they're canceling programs. Are they going to cancel stuff that effectively or immediately affects our state? And are we prepared for that? The answer again is no. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to be doing proactively to ensure that we're not losing massive amounts of federal money or local money, state money, without having something in place. Now, a lot of these things we can just cut and it's not going to impact schools, at least the day-to-day lives of kids. But still, we need to have a plan in place. We need to be looking at this. We need to be proactive. We need to stop spending money unnecessarily because that's our tax dollars. That's my money. That is a single income home. You're taking my money to spend wastefully on something that really and truly the government doesn't need to even be spending. So we've got to get a state level DOGE. We've got to start looking into these programs and figure out exactly what it is we can do to get rid of the bloat and start using our taxpayer dollars efficiently. So I don't know the answer. I hope that someone out there has a suggestion on how we move forward in getting a local DOGE or a state level DOGE that can start looking into this and have the power to actually do something. If you've got suggestions, by all means, please send them my way because I would love to hear them. I am a solutions person and I have yet to come up with a solution on this, so I need all the help I can get. So that is my spiel for the week. We need an Alabama DOGE because we've got to figure out what's going on with our local tax dollars. So if you've got solutions, send them my way. I cannot wait to hear what you guys have. Thanks for stopping by, guys. And until next time, be controversial.